more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, let's get this thing started in style, shall we? Talk about racing this weekend. Now, there's not a whole lot. Now, I will say this. If you are on YouTube, our good friend Athena, who is over in Europe, will probably give us a rundown of all the racing that's happening all the way around the world. And it's a pretty intensive list, number one, and it's a pretty cool list, number two.
Yep, sure is.
Here in the United States, or amongst the series that we cover, there is no racing unless you look in our own backyard, where Talladega Short Track has one of the prestigious, I guess you could call it, off-season races. I mean, we talk about things like the Chili Bowl. We talk about things like, well, Snowball Derby down in Pensacola at Five Flags.
Yeah, that one, the Wild West Shootout in New Mexico.
Well, one of those ones happens right here at Talladega Superspeedway. We call it the Ice Bowl. It's something that our resident racing driver here, Matt, has experience with.
We got 3 starts in the Ice Bowl.
Yeah, and they're running this weekend and kind of consolidated it down a little bit this year.
Yeah, they've actually within the last couple of years, they've condensed it from a 4-day show to a 3-day show.
Okay.
Which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's
Not
a good
necessarily,
thing.
no, yeah.
To keep from having to run on Sunday, because it's on Sunday with the, I guess you could say, the out of respect move with local churches that are in close proximity to the short track. Let's say it that way. They don't start the events until high noon, and it can run way, way, way later into the night, which is not very fun on a Sunday. But they condensed it down to where they run all the mains on Saturday, and they run it in a timely, efficient manner, which is very good, which Adam and the staff down there have done a very good job of condensing all that down. And with an increased purse, a few bigger names have showed up.
Yeah. So I drove by it this morning, and yeah, it was dark, but you could see enough to the point where you could tell that whole area is just absolutely jam-packed. So they've got a big car count.
I think there's, if I'm not mistaken, 180 to 220 cars out there.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all. So good stuff. Next weekend, it's either, I can't remember whether it's next weekend or the weekend after. Sometime in the next couple of weeks, Formula E gets their season underway. So we'll be talking about racing in detail here very, very shortly. But there's a lot of news. I mean, it's been 3 weeks to the day since we last talked to you. Whether you're listening on our flagship radio station or you're checking us out on CRN Live on YouTube, it doesn't matter. A lot has happened. About 20 pages worth. I think that's a record for us.
I just got a message. We're dead air.
Oh, fun. Let's try that. Let's see if that works.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's with Talladega Short Track in, Formula E ready to begin, and, the season about to get underway. And again, like I said, 20 pages worth of stuff to talk about. Let's get into it, shall we? Red Bull Racing. We're going to start off in Formula One because I found this story just absolutely fascinating. Is it the biggest story of the week? No, it's not. But I found it so fascinating that I decided to lead off with this. Red Bull Racing, Formula One teams use wind tunnels all the time, and they tend to build their own because, let's face it, these guys are putting, $150 million into a car. So $300 million into fielding their 2 cars for the year. So, yeah, they're going out and they're building their own wind tunnels. Well, Red Bull Racing has been using an old one. And I get it. They're kind of a, Swiss-Austrian-based organization, but their racing headquarters are in England. Okay, keep that in mind.
Milton Keynes.
Mm-hmm. If you think about it, this old wind tunnel, and you think about their 2023 season, this should scare some people who are hoping to see somebody jump up and challenge them for F1 supremacy. The wind tunnel they're currently using has had upgrades over the course of time, one would hope. But reports have this wind tunnel dating back to 1947, back when the UK created their National Aeronautic Establishment to advance air travel technology for both civilian and military purposes. The wind tunnel was heavily used when the Concorde, remember that? Kids, ask your grandparents, was being developed in the 1960s, but eventually the country built themselves a new one, sold off the wind tunnel. First, it went to the Arrows F1 operation, and when they went under, the Jaguar F1 team in 2003 acquired a 123-year lease on that wind tunnel. Well, guess what? Jaguar got bought out by Red Bull in 2005, and all of the assets of the former Formula One operation known as Jaguar went along in the sale to Red Bull Racing, and that means the 100-plus year lease on the property went with it. And if you do the quick math here, that was 2005. 2003 was when they signed a 123-year lease, so they've still got just about 99 years to go on that lease. But we don't care.
No.
We're Red Bull. We're building a new one. Okay.
Yeah.
Christian Horner, team Red Bull principal, said, quote, with the wind tunnel that we have, which is a Cold War relic, it's not particularly efficient, particularly in cold weather, which you tend to get a bit of here in the UK. We have to be very, very selective, and that's where the team has done brilliantly well in really being selective of where we channel our development. As far as the new tunnel, he added, quote, with wind tunnels being a thing of the future by all accounts, we've had to go with the times, invest in a new wind tunnel, construction to start in the course of 2024, probably summertime, for whatever summer passes in the UK. It's expected to be ready in 2026. Horner said, quote, you don't want to introduce it in season. You have to nominate a tunnel for the year, so it'll probably begin the 2027 car. Huh. Okay.
If they did that with a wind tunnel it did that in 23 with a wind tunnel that was built in 1947.
That they had to use selectively because it's temperate in cold weather.
What's that line? What's that line in that movie where the person says, "Hold on to your butts"? Yeah.
Yep. I agree. So pretty soon we're going to be ready for the 2024 season to begin in F1. But before, you got to have preseason testing. Even before that, we'll get all the unveilings of all the Formula One cars for how they'll look in 2024. Not just paint schemes, but let's face it, the bodies change year over year as well. Ferrari has announced that they are going to show off their new cars February the 13th. It's just over a week before preseason testing begins. That'll start February 21st, wrap up on February the 23rd, still slated for, at least for now, the Catalunya circuit in Barcelona, Spain. That may or may not change. I kind of doubt it, though. It's been kind of a tradition, I guess.
Yeah.
Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur said of the new cars for 2024, they are, quote, changing 95% of the components of the car, unquote, as they want to change their prospects, finishing third again behind Red Bull and Mercedes. This will be the team's fourth season to use drivers Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Both of them, though, are in their final seasons of the current deals. Vasseur said that talks have already begun, so it looks like they're not worried about the drivers.
Right.
They honestly think that the drivers are fine. We've got to change the cars.
Definitely. There's nothing wrong with the drivers. I mean, Leclerc and Sainz both have proven they can win.
Yeah. And they
So,
performed well last year, despite the fact that all the headlines went to Max Verstappen. Leclerc was winning poles and competing for wins, most especially after the August break. And I think that's a big key right there to show what they can do.
For sure.
It's just now figuring out what's going on with the car to give them the car that matches the performance the drivers can give them.
For sure. No ifs, ands, or buts about that.
And then the question becomes, how much of that did they share with Haas F1?
Zero.
Probably not. Just after Christmas, two other teams announced that they were going to show off their cars in the exact dates as well. Williams hasn't said much about their 2024 plans, but they do know that they have turned their attention to 2024 fully after the 2023 Canadian Grand Prix. That was the 8th race of the 2023 season, and they shifted all the details to 2024. They say they'll show off the car February the 5th, show how much, at least, well, this kind of shows how much, or at least somewhat, how much F1 teams appreciate the U.S. market. Following the leads of what Red Bull and AlphaTauri did last year, Williams is going to come to the United States of America and unveil their 2024 racers in New York City. Okay.
Pick a little different place to unveil it at, but, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you go to the biggest media market and the biggest sports market in the world. I guess we'll find out whether or not that makes any difference for them.
Sure.
Funny thing is that very same day, the team that just debuted their ridiculously long new for 2024 name, Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber. Sorry, I'm still calling you Sauber, and that's going to be it. They're going to unveil their new car, doing so in London, as opposed to being closer to their home in Switzerland, which they've done over the last few years. Both Williams and Sauber are bringing back, by the way, their 2023 driver lineup. So we've got those coming in February the 5th, Ferrari February the 13th. There's one more that is announced. It's Aston Martin. They're going to show off their new for 2024 look. They're going to unveil it on February the 12th, a week after Williams and Sauber, and a day before Ferrari shows their new racers off. So we got 4 teams making their announcement. We're waiting now on the other 6, at least one. And if I'm going to place a bet now, I'm going to say it's going to be Haas F1. will wait until February the 21st, the first day of practice sessions, to unveil their 2024 racer.
Probably.
Over at Alpine, they don't have a reveal date yet, but they have talked about their cars for 2024. They promise it'll be all new, quote-unquote, front to back. The team did claim 2 podium finishes in 2023. Thank you, Fernando Alonso. But it felt like development on the 2023 car kind of hit a plateau early on, and it showed a need to go back to kind of square one. So I guess we'll find out exactly what returning to base will do for them, if anything. Thing is, the team also notes the major changes were set for 2025, so why not just go ahead and get started using some of the information that's currently available for the 2025 season in preparation for the new engine regulations set to dawn for 2026, and they're starting to work towards that now. So, yeah, their 2024 car will do what they can within the rules to go ahead and prepare their cars for the 2025 regs. That's not a bad move.
No.
Go ahead and get that jump start there.
Get the jump start and see where it takes you.
Absolutely.
I mean, what have you got to lose?
Nothing.
Yeah, absolutely zero.
I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You fall down a couple of spots in the standings, but you got to jump on everybody else for 2025?
True.
Big deal. And if it works out right, who knows? Maybe you pull an upset or two.
True.
Team's technical director, Matt Harmon, noted that the development of the 2023 car was not as malleable as they would have liked. Quote, I think that's why for the following year's car, we really had to unlock some real estate again, which is why the car's completely new front to back. So I think you'll see that up and down the grid because what the car needs the last couple of years, while we look towards the future, apparently entirely different. And I get that. I mean, we're starting to go towards, again, all new engine regulations. Basically, the whole thing is about to change in 2026. Between 2025 and 2026, between the engine and the car itself, there's going to be a whole lot of changes that are going on. So, yeah, I just think they understand that, and we're going to go ahead and get a jump on it. Do it.
Oh, like I said earlier, what have you got to lose?
Hey, Gunther Steiner, taking notes?
Gunther.
Just asking. I did find this interesting.
Yeah.
And I know that licenses have to be renewed from time to time, so it doesn't make it's not that big of a surprise to me that an F1 Super license will expire to a certain extent unless you pay to re-up it. Well, 2023 is done. 2024 is dawned, and F1 drivers got to renew them for a fee, of course. Yeah, it's not like they're just going to...
Yeah, license fees for series ain't cheap.
Well, no.
Especially not this one.
Well, much like how much the season-ending prize money allotment is based upon the team's final points finish, the final points finish also determines how much it'll cost for the driver to renew their F1 Super license. We don't know it for everybody, but we do know it for champion Max Verstappen. Obviously, as we talked about late last year, he lapped the field in driver points. He scored more than double what the second-place points finisher Sergio Perez even racked up. So the bill to renew his Super license for one Max Verstappen, 1.2 million euros. Or about $1.5 million. Now, this isn't that big of a deal because Max Verstappen brought home $55 million in the 2022 season, the last season for full driver salary figures that are available. I wouldn't imagine it's changed much unless it went up for 2023.
I'm sure it went up.
But here's the thing. Verstappen got asked about it, and he said that he's not going to have to pay the renewal license for his own license. He says, quote, the team pays that, fortunately.
Yep.
Red Bull responded. They said, yep, we're going to pay for Max Verstappen. Now, think about how I just worded that for just a moment. The team has confirmed they'll pay for Max Verstappen.
But...
Doesn't he have a teammate?
Yep.
What's that guy's name?
That'd be Checo.
Sergio Perez.
Yep.
In the same statement, Red Bull did not state that they were going to pay for Sergio Perez's.
I would be willing to bet this statement came out of Helmut Marko's mouth.
None of the other teams, by the way, have noted whether or not they have or will pay the fees for their drivers or whether the drivers are on the list for it and they have to do it themselves.
It's insane. Insane.
And I honestly, I have to say this, I don't know. But I mean, all these major series around the world, they have licenses. Does the team that you're contracted with pay them, or do you?
That would be the team. Because if you're driving for said team, they take care of your licensing fees.
So in other words, we'll bring it home to NASCAR terms. Let's say you and I were driving for Stewart-Haas Racing, and we were under contract to drive for them in 2024. SHR would pay for our re-upping our NASCAR license.
Correct.
Or Chip Ganassi Racing would re-up our IndyCar license.
Correct.
Okay. I do find it interesting, though, that they didn't state it right offhand. They only noted they were going to pay Max Verstappen's bill.
And here's a comparison, and this is how I know this. $1.5 million for F1. An ARCA driver license in 2023, $700.
My, how things change.
Yeah.
Well, we fit our first break of 2024. Don't worry, we'll be right back. Continue talking racing.
Right here for more on the champion.
Matt Nicholson's in the studio. Steve Westham, in the studio. Producer John, weekend off here as he's got some work situations that he's got to deal with. You know, we've all got paying jobs that we got to deal with, and unfortunately that is taking precedence for him this weekend, so he'll be back soon. When? Maybe February? I don't know. We'll find out. Back to Formula One news here, where Renault Alpine. Now, remember, Alpine is a subsidiary brand under the Renault banner. Okay, it's their sports car banner, basically. But they decided a couple of years ago that they would change the F1 team's name from Renault over to Alpine, just to kind of highlight that brand, if you will. Well, Renault Alpine has said that they would be willing to do something that all the other teams apparently have said we couldn't care less about this operation. Talking about that Andretti Cadillac F1 operation. Renault Alpine apparently had talked with Michael Andretti as he was starting to get everything together and before General Motors / Cadillac came in as kind of a bolster to that application to get into and possibly get an F1 team. And it was Renault and Alpine that were talking about supplying that Andretti Autosport, or Andretti Global now, team with their power units. And they've said they're still willing to do that if they do get approved with an F1 entry. The two sides, as I mentioned, had a working agreement when officially applied to get into the series, but because of delays from the FIA on finalizing who would and would not be approved, that agreement kind of timed out. But Alpine team principal Bruno Famine stated recently, over the holiday break, for us anyway, that they would be willing to re-up on that agreement, would be happy to supply power units to Andretti until the Cadillac power unit would be available and ready to go for that operation. Famine recently talked to Racer.com, said, quote, "We are talking to Andretti and to General Motors. We're happy to talk to them. If they have an entry, we are happy to resume the talks. For the time being, it's a little bit on standby, not due to us. It's because of the length of the process has been much, much longer than expected. The FIA took more time to answer than they said at the beginning, and now the ball's on the F1 side. But yeah, if they have an entry, we'll be happy to discuss a deal with them." What I said last time is that we had pre-contract. Pre-contract is expired. Then factually, right now, we don't have any commitment or any legal commitment with them. But we're happy to talk to them, see what we can do together. If they have an entry, it's because they will have demonstrated that they'll bring a lot of added value to F1, and that value of the championship and the teams will not be diluted due to that. There was a whole lot of, we don't have any commitments, we're happy to talk to them in there. But I wanted to continue to talk this particular quote because of those last words right there. Mm-hmm. If they have an entry, it's right, because they will have demonstrated that they will bring a lot of added value to F1 and that the value of the championship and the teams will not be diluted due to that. Mm-hmm. Now, I get he's got the if in there. But the fact that they were willing to talk to Andretti during the application process,
right,
tells me that somebody at Renault Alpine saw that there was a value here. Mm-hmm. And again, I say this, it's more than just the Andretti name. Okay? That does bring a lot of panache. I mean, you think about it. You think Andretti, you think Mario Andretti, you think a guy who was a Formula One champion, an Indycar champion, and a Daytona 500 winner. Mm-hmm. How many drivers can say, and this isn't many, there's a few, but how many drivers can say that they've won at the top level of 3 different motorsports series?
Not very many.
Mario Andretti is one of the very few who can say he's won an F1 race, he's won an IndyCar race, and he's won a Daytona, not just a NASCAR Cup Series race, but a Daytona 500.
The only other one that I can think of right offhand that has won at all 3 top levels is Juan Montoya.
Think about that for a moment. Then think about the history of Andretti. As an operation, whether it's Mario or Michael, whether it's Mario behind the wheel or as an owner, Michael behind the wheel or as an owner, think about what they've accomplished. And I get it. They've had a couple of down years here as we started to go into the 2020s. But are they quitting? No. Look at the team that they got now. Can they get back to winning? Absolutely, 110%. And then think about everything else that Andretti's got his fingers into when it comes to racing. He's got IMSA, he's got Formula E, he's got Extreme E, which is about to turn into Extreme H because they're about to go hydrogen. We talked about that the last time we were on the air. This is a team that doesn't suffer losing.
Nope.
And they're willing to make changes just like that in order to make sure that they get back to winning. If you think Michael Andretti's coming into Formula One just to say he's got an F1 team and he'll just run around and be happy playing backmarker, it's not going to happen. And I'm not saying that there's any team that's out there that's happy playing backmarker, but Michael Andretti will put the money and the resources into it to put that team in the upper half of Formula One if he can do it at all. And I keep saying this, it's not just a name. Andretti brings a lot in a market like the United States of America that could help out Formula One. They say that they've got their foot here. Dude, you got a long way to go. You look at the average television ratings for a Cup Series race versus a Formula One race, and I'm talking average. I'm not talking about picking this one or that one out. Take the average F1 race televised in the U.S. versus an average Cup Series race here in the U.S. Cup Series race has 3 times the viewership.
Yep. I did find something right here. It didn't have F1 in it, but there's a list that I found via autoweek.com.
Okay.
Of 14 drivers of all time that have won in NASCAR and IndyCar.
Okay. And that's not including Formula One.
Right. Johnny Mance.
Okay.
He's at 1 IndyCar, 1 Cup win.
Okay.
Chuck Stevenson, he has 4 IndyCar wins, 1 Cup win.
Okay.
Dan Gurney, 7 IndyCar wins, 5 Cup wins.
And Dan Gurney is a well-known sports car racer, too. I mean, that guy is highly accomplished.
Parnelli Jones,
Another sports car racer.
6 IndyCar, 4 Cup.
Okay.
Mark Donohue, 1-1.
Sports car racer, too.
Jim Hurtubise, 4 Indy, 1 Cup.
Okay.
Johnny Rutherford, 27 IndyCar, 1 Cup.
Including an Indy 500, if I remember right.
AJ Foyt,
Oh, yeah.
67 Indy wins, 7 Cup Series wins. Mario Andretti, 52 Indy wins, 1 Cup.
And that's a Daytona 500.
John Andretti, 1 IndyCar, 2 Cup.
First driver to ever run the double.
Robbie Gordon, 2 IndyCar, 3 Cup. And of course, Tony Stewart,
Sure.
3 IndyCar, 49 Cup.
Yep.
Montoya, 15 Indy, 2 Cup.
Yeah. And then we could look over at Formula One.
AJ Allmendinger, 5 IndyCar, 2 Cup.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize exactly how much experience A.J. Allmendinger had in IndyCar.
Correct. Quite a bit.
Yep. It's a pretty elite list on just talking about those 2. Then you throw in Formula One, that list becomes even smaller. So, yeah. But here's the thing. That Andretti name does bring a lot of panache, but it's not just the Andretti name. There are things that Michael Andretti can bring. And I'm sorry, this is something, as much as I've rooted for Haas F1, and I have, I'd love to see Haas F1 survive and thrive in Formula One. I really would. Because I think the world of Gene Haas, and I know that he's a man who has this real big passion for racing. And he's been able to feed that because he's got a very successful company in Haas CNC Machining. But until Tony Stewart came in, let's face it, his prospects in NASCAR were not great.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying Tony Stewart needs to be part of the Formula One operation. What I am saying is that there is something that needs to spur Haas F1 to doing what they were able to accomplish over at the shop next door in Concord, North Carolina. Tony Stewart came in, he kind of remade that operation, and it became a championship-winning organization with Tony Stewart as the first driver/owner to win since Alan Kulwicki, and then backed it up 3 years later by going and getting Kevin Harvick and putting him in that car, and he wins a championship. And all the races that they've won of Stewart Haas Racing. That was not going to happen with just Gene Haas.
Right. That's correct.
Something's going to have to happen over at Haas F1. And I don't know what it is. I mean, we all like Gunther Steiner, don't get me wrong. He's become a superstar when it comes to things like F1 Drive to Survive. But sooner or later, we're going to have to figure out, is Gunther Steiner the guy that's going to lead this team to doing more than claiming 1 pole since they debuted in 2016 and never having had a podium?
Right.
So Gene Haas has to figure it out. And if this is that thing that actually lights that fire under Haas F1, great. But just claiming that you have an American-based team is not going to be enough. Williams has an American-born driver. Unfortunately for Williams, other than the fact that they're unveiling their 2024 racers in New York City with Logan Sargent probably in attendance, they're not really proclaiming that fact to the American market that, hey, here's an American driver you can root for in Formula One. Andretti will go out there, he'll fly proudly the American flag, and has promised at least one American-born driver will be in his cars.
Mm-hmm. Which is good.
That does is raise the profile of Formula One in the United States.
Absolutely.
There's what Andretti would bring. Speaking of power units for 2026, Aston Martin has announced they're going to pair up with the newly christened Honda Racing Corporation USA. Yep, formerly Honda Performance Development. This, by the way, will mark a move away from Mercedes, the power units Aston's going to use until the new for 2026 engine regulations come into play. So there'll be Mercedes this year and next year, and then 2026 move to Honda. At this time, the only team that Honda will be supplying for 2026, but this officially does mark their return to F1. Remember that whole situation where they thought, maybe we'll get out, maybe we'll stay in, we don't know. They've still got the name on the Red Bull or the logo on the side of Red Bull, even though technically it's a Red Bull engine, as they call it. It's still the Honda design that they're using, which is why the Honda logo is still sitting on those cars. Well, that's going to change for 2026 because even though it's still going to be the Honda design, they'll slap a Ford Blue Oval sticker on it. And then Honda turns around and goes and uses that engine and gives it to Aston Martin.
Yep.
Okay. Works for me. According to the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, in case you didn't know, FIA Sporting Director Steve Nielsen one and done as the head of Formula One's race control operations. The report claims he left because he felt that the FIA didn't have his back in implementing the changes that he wanted to make in the aftermath of the ruling back in 2021 that Michael Massey gave, that many feel gave unfairly the title to Max Verstappen over Lewis Hamilton that year. So Steve Nielsen couldn't handle the pressure, or he just didn't feel like he had the support. I'm not sure which. He's saying it's because he didn't feel the support.
Right.
We'll see. 2023 turned out to be not much better, trying to eliminate confusion and backlash over decisions, penalties handed out to both teams and drivers, not the least of which the recent decision to open up an investigation into allegations of impropriety between Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff and his wife, who's Susie Wolff, and currently the F1 Academy chief. But of course, she's roaming around in the halls of the FIA. It was based off a report printed in a European magazine, which was roundly debunked pretty quickly. The 9 other F1 teams all deny they had a part in that report, and the investigation was dropped after only 2 days. But here's the thing. They had to get that information from somewhere. Somebody had to say something that make the report go, is there something there? Is there fire to all this smoke? It's got to be somebody.
Something.
And I'm sorry. If I'm trying to figure out who's out there talking, the first candidates that I'm going to look at are the 9 opponents of Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me.
Yeah.
One other note here in the Formula One area here, and then we'll turn our attention to other series. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner, already honored in 2023 with an OBE, or what they call Officer of the British Empire, was given a new accolade of CBE, Commander of the British Empire. He was done with that, or honored with that, by King Charles III on New Year's Eve. That's going to be weird to get used to. I'm sorry. I'm so used to Queen Elizabeth. King Charles III on New Year's Eve for his services in motorsport. Horner's been the head of operations for Red Bull's Formula One efforts. Think about this. Since they debuted back in 2005. That dude's been the team principal now for going on 20 years. How many people get to say that?
Not many.
Since then, he's led the organization to 6 Constructors' Cup titles, 7 Drivers' titles, 113 race wins, most of them by Max Verstappen, with all due respect to Sebastian Vettel, 264 podium finishes. Horner said of this, quote, "It was an unexpected distinction a decade ago to be presented with an OBE, and to receive this second award, a CBE, is one for which I'm hugely grateful and deeply honored. It's a great privilege to lead and work alongside such a phenomenal team, and also to work in an industry that contributes so much to the United Kingdom's economy. And we've said this, Red Bull's not the only team with their racing operations based in Britain. 7 of the 10 Formula One teams have their race operations based in England, including the aforementioned Haas F1. Yeah, they got a shop in Concord, North Carolina, but trust me, they're running their cars out of a shop in England.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll talk a little Stewart Haas racing and, well, a whole lot more in the Cup Series.
We'll be right back.
In. We appreciate you joining us. Again, producer John has other business that he needs to tend to, so Matt is taking care of the CRN Live on YouTube side of things, and I'm the one that's got control of the board, so, you know, little screw-ups like at the beginning of the show. If you're listening on our flagship station, that's all me. Sorry about that.
But we got it, though.
Yeah, we got you covered. To the Cup Series here, and man, 2023, what a year for Ryan Blaney. Obviously, 2023 Cup Series champion. Then just a week before Christmas, decided to pop the question to his girlfriend, now fiance, Gianna Tullio. Two have been together for 3 years. On Saturday morning, December the 16th, Blaney dropped down on one knee, asked her to marry him. She quickly, according to witnesses, said yes. No date was announced if they have settled on the wedding date. But whenever it is, hey, congratulations. Speaking of marriages, I just found out Zane Smith is set to be married this coming week.
The Greg Alding sister. God love you.
Yeah.
Anyways, I didn't say that.
Congratulations to them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you did see that?
I did not say that.
You did not say that?
No,
Oh, okay.
I didn't say that, no. God love you.
I got you. Let's see here. We'll start to show you some pictures here as we go along. And nobody's saying that what Stewart-Haas Racing did last year, they were happy with.
Right.
They couldn't be. Was that the first year that they went without a win?
I believe so.
And think about that. From a startup organization for all intents and purposes, bringing Tony Stewart in, and that was 2009?
Yes.
Not a bad little run to begin. Last year, not happy. Changes being made. Obviously, we got 2 new drivers. Kevin Harvick retires. Eric Almirola has effectively retired from Cup Series racing. And he's returned to where he started, Joe Gibbs Racing, and he'll finish out his career running select Xfinity Series races for them. So there's 2 changes there. Bringing in Josh Berry. He's been a hotshot kid and proved himself pretty good filling in for Chase Elliott earlier on in 2023. Mm-hmm. And they got another young kid, Noah Gragson, who, may need to grow up a little bit, but Tony Stewart sees a lot in Noah Gragson, I think, in what he saw in himself, which is a raw racing driver with a hunger for going out and claiming a win.
Absolutely.
But those 2 drivers aren't the only changes. We've got new spotters as well. The 4 car for Josh Berry, somebody who's familiar to him, Eddie DeHunt. Eddie DeHunt, who has been the spotter for the 9 car at Hendrick Motorsports the last few years, which means, of course, he was in the ear of one Josh Berry for, 6 or 7 races?
6.
6 races back in the year just ended. Apparently, he liked talking with Josh Berry, and they had a good working relationship, so he moved over to Stewart-Haas to call the shots for Josh Berry. That's not a bad pull.
Not a bad move at all.
For the 10 car, Andy Houston becomes the spotter for Noah Gragson. On the 14 car, Chase Briscoe's spotter will be Joe Campbell. For Ryan Preece on the 41 car, the voice he'll hear is Tony Raines. The graphic that you see on CRN Live on YouTube, thanks to Stewart-Haas Racing for the graphic that ties the cars and the spotters together. What does this spotter lineup say to you as a driver?
You can say that as a driver and as to a degree.
And you've done some
to a degree, and I have been spotter. It gives Josh Berry a veteran ear.
Mm-hmm.
That's been doing it a while. Same thing with Noah Gragson, with Andy Houston moving from Cole Custer over to Noah Gragson.
Right.
That's a solid veteran voice in his ear.
Now here's the question: is Andy doing double duty? Is he still going to call the shots for Cole, or is he moving specifically
He's
over
moving
to the 10 car?
specifically to the 10, and
Okay.
Tony Raines is coming back to the 41 car because Tony Raines was a spotter for Kurt Busch when Kurt Busch drove the 41.
Right.
And then Joe Campbell, he's I forgot who he's done some work with in the past, but I know he and Chase Briscoe have a relationship with each other. And so,
and I know I've asked you this before, okay? But the relationship between spotter and driver is at least as important as between the driver and the crew chief.
to me, honestly, it's just as big, if not bigger.
Could be bigger? Okay.
Could be bigger because what you're seeing on the spotter stand versus what they're seeing and feeling in the truck, they can relay truck or the car. They can relay the information like, hey, you know, you're running third, but the two in front of you are a tenth quicker and a groove lower.
Mm-hmm.
Move it down a little bit. Because you've got that way you can see on the top as well. You can see timing and scoring and relative data and median data and deltas, whole 9 yards. If you're everywhere but mid-Ohio, you can see all that and you can relay it to them and let them move down like, okay, that worked. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Instead of going a half a groove higher, half a groove lower, let's go a half a groove higher.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple information like that right there. And that's the key communication right there.
Yeah. Because because
yeah.
here's the thing. I mean, you as the driver, if I'm your spotter, I can look at the whole field. Like you were saying, I can look at the whole field and I can say, okay, these two drivers ahead of you are going a little bit faster than you are and they're running this line, try this line. or there's a driver that's in 6th place and you're in 3rd, but he's coming up fast, gaining 0.2 a lap on you.
Right.
He's running this line as opposed to the line that you're running.
Sure.
But if I'm your crew chief, the most that you can tell me, because I can't see the whole track like I can as a spotter. As a crew chief, I'm reliant upon you, the driver, to tell me what you need in the car.
And to the ones that have heard radio communications, period. Basically, what it boils down to is when you get to a caution period, or if you're still under green and you know you're coming up to us around the green flag pit stops, from the time they hit pit road to wherever the time that pit box is, whether you're in pit stall 1 or pit stall 40, I would say anywhere from pit stall 30 to pit stall 40, you've got to start talking like, all right, what's your vehicle doing? What do I need to do? Mm-hmm. What do you need? All right. But if you're in pit stall 29 and forward, you're gearing down and you're hitting pit road. All right, what you need? Loose here, loose on entry, tight on exit, tight dead center, loose dead center. Mm-hmm. Whatever you want to throw at them, you got time. All right, give me this, and this.
Yeah.
That's where your crew guys are on the wall sitting there going like, all right, what have I got? What do I need? What do I need to do? I'm holding this wrench. I'm holding that wrench. Doing this, doing that. Whatever not. Okay? But you got the spotter that's doing the main line of communication out there. Road courses are totally different animal.
Sure.
Totally different animal. Because you've got your section that you're watching, and from experience, I'll give you the prime example from Mid-Ohio. When I went to Mid-Ohio, I had the exit of turn 6, 7, 8, 9, and the entry to turn 10. That's what you call a baptism by a blowtorch. Mm-hmm. Not a baptism by fire, baptism by a blowtorch.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You're on the second half. You're leading up to the start-finish line.
I'm leading up to it, yes.
And which means you're also choosing a line for restarts
but I'm in the section to where I'm calling, all right, 1 to go, and the choose area is 40 feet past it, 50 feet past it. Okay, great. But it's called adaptation and having veteran ears, and you're like, all right, give me this, give me that, give me here, give me there. That's where you talk to your driver in between. Well, before they get on the racetrack, all right, and I will give you word for word exactly what communication that I had with Brett in the truck and in the hauler. The only 2 things I asked, I said, how do you want me to call when you got traffic? Do you want inside or out or right or left? Because I don't want to throw you off. Mm-hmm. Because I had sections. The sections that I had lefts and rights. So I had to call it to where he knew where it was, because the absolute last thing I wanted to do was put him in a position that if I called it inside or out and I threw him off, if I said outside and it's to his right and he's going into a right-hander, that's going to throw him off.
Yeah.
So I had to, do you want right or left, inside or out? He said, give me right or left. I said, no problem.
Okay.
Which lane do you want on the choose? Do you want inside lane, or do you want right hand or left hand? Do you want to be left-hander going into 1 or run the right side going into 2 in the keyhole? Your call. Whatever you want, that's what you get.
Okay.
He said simply, but he said, we'll just leave it simple to where neither one of us get confused. Whatever the number is, give me the number, and then when I'm within 30 feet of the choose rule, the choose line, I'll just make that determination when I get there. Simple enough.
Yeah.
But
there's got to be a trust between you and this. If you're the driver, there's got to be a trust between you and the spotter.
There's got to be that trust level, and there's got to be clear communication. But if there's like, hey, and if you make a wrong call on the lane, hey, that's on me. I read that wrong. Let's go the other way. Mm-hmm. Leave it put. Because as the saying goes, windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror for a reason.
Okay. What does and I'm gonna go with the one that you kind of mentioned in the return, Tony Raines. Mm-hmm. Tony Raines having called the shots for Kurt Busch when they were on the 41 together. What does Tony Raines bring to Ryan Preece? Because we saw flashes of a couple of races where Ryan Preece seemed to kind of have it last year, but that 41 car all but disappeared last year. What's Tony Raines do for Ryan Preece?
It's going to be hard to say, honestly, because with Andy and Tony both being drivers of the past, they know what it's like to be behind the wheel. I really don't know what difference it's going to be between Tony versus Andy.
Okay.
I mean, they've both had success on the stand over the years, but if you ultimately leave it to me, it's Tony versus Andy as a lateral move.
Okay.
I would call it lateral.
So it's just a matter of who you get more comfortable with.
True.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Well, since Eddie DeHaan departed as his spotter, Chase Elliott needed one for 2024. Hendrick Motorsports believes they've got the right person for the job. His name is Trey Poole. He's got experience. He was a second spotter for the 9-car at road courses and filled in when DeHaan couldn't back in 2021. As it turns out, Trey Poole's Chase's cousin.
So you're saying there's a chance?
You never know. Speaking of Hendrick Motorsports, they're going to have a slightly new look for 2024 because they're going to be celebrating a milestone this coming year. They are turning 40 years old. And to help in the celebration, they've unveiled a new logo that you can see right now on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of Hendrick Motorsports. Now, for those listening, it's a black background, and you got the regular white Hendrick Motorsports logo up top, the one that we're oh so familiar with. Down on the bottom of that square, you have in red a stylized 40 with a checkered flag in the middle of the 0 in that number. It's actually I kind of liked it, truth be told. I enjoyed looking at it. It's a sharp-looking logo.
It is sharp.
And it doesn't change up everything a whole lot. Again, like I said, up at the top, you got that familiar Hendrick Motorsports logo down on the bottom of there. It's got a good look to that. Just kind of brings the whole thing down, because if you look at the flying checkered flag logo that's underneath Hendrick Motorsports, they just brought it into that logo for the 40. A good look.
No doubt.
Way to go. Hendrick, of course, has become, in a relatively short time, again, 40 years, the powerhouse of NASCAR. They've claimed the most wins for any Cup Series organization, 301, along with 14 Cup Series titles along the way. Think about that. 40 years and 14 Cup titles. And I get 11 of them technically are between two drivers. 7 of them for Jimmy Johnson, 15 of them. And 4 for 11. Sorry, I'm getting myself all confused. 11 of them between two drivers, 7 for Jimmy Johnson, 4 for Jeff Gordon. Then you got, 2 Terry Labonte? Is that right?
7 Johnson, 4 Gordon. That's 11.
2 Terry
2
Labonte.
Terry Labonte is 13.
Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson.
There's your 15.
That's nuts. They also got 26 wins in what's now the Xfinity Series. Title in 2023 in that series, or 2003 in that series. Truck Series, they've added another 26 wins with 3 titles, which came in 1997, 1999, and again in 2001. Plus, they've also dabbled a little bit in ARCA Menard Series competition. They've got 7 race wins there.
Kyle Busch, Brian Vickers, and Blake Beese.
There's a name we haven't heard in a while.
Yep.
In other spotters news, to nobody's surprise here, we saw this coming pretty much as soon as he said that he was leaving Team Penske and being Ryan Blaney's spotter. We're talking about Josh Williams. No, don't confuse him with the driver Josh Williams. This is the spotter Josh Williams. Yeah, he led Ryan Blaney to the 2023 title and then promptly exited stage right. He's made it official. We thought this was going to happen. He will be reuniting with the aforementioned Zane Smith, becoming his spotter. Like Smith, will officially be an employee of Trackhouse Racing and will be lent to Spire Motorsports to be the driver-spotter combo on the 71 Camaro. And again, that's that interesting little situation there where these guys they're answering to 2 masters, I guess is one way to put it. Because if you listen to interviews with Zane Smith, he has said he'll be in competition meetings on Mondays at Trackhouse and then over at Spire.
Pretty fortunate that Trackhouse and Spire shops not that far apart.
There's got to be a level of communication, though, between Trackhouse and Spire, doesn't there? I mean, he can't be in a meeting at Trackhouse Racing, hear one thing, and then go to Spire and hear something entirely different.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying that this is an unprecedented situation, but it's not a common deal to where you're under contract for one team and you're driving for somebody else in this situation.
This is that scenario. I'm trying to make it quick before we have to go break.
Yeah.
This is that scenario to where you had Brett Moffitt on loan from Front Row Motorsports to Michael Waltrip Racing at that time. Or Chris Buescher on loan to Front Row from RFK.
Right.
Same thing, if you ask me. He's hearing what the Trackhouse people have to say on their respective competition meetings, but he has to go to Spire because he's driving a Spire car. That's probably going to be prepared by Trackhouse.
I would think that they would have to have a big say in how it's prepared. It's their driver.
I'm sure there's probably going to be quite a bit of Trackhouse prepared Spire cars.
January 4th, 5th, and 6th, Talladega Short Track, East Boga, Alabama. It's the 33rd Annual Ice Bowl. Give them a call, 256-831-1413. Talladega Short Track, dirt track in Southern style. Carry on.
To the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, we are back. We appreciate you joining us. We were talking about Trackhouse Racing when we left off. And they're no doubt about it an ambitious group. I mean, you think about their ambitions. Sports Business Journal reported just before Christmas that they were seeking new avenues to raise money for their planned expansion in both NASCAR and in MotoGP, which we talked about 3 weeks ago last time we were talking to you. Thing is, at least NASCAR-wise, things appear to be in pretty good shape. They got the backing of Chevrolet. Sponsorships from Anheuser-Busch. Remember, the Busch Light sponsorship moves from the 4 car at Stewart-Haas Racing over to the 1 car this coming year. They got Coca-Cola, they got Kubota, they got Jockey and others, obviously, for the 1 and 99 cars. Team founder, former NASCAR driver himself, Justin Marks, said of this, quote, "I think if we think about the future for Trackhouse, looks like we're going to raise investment capital to have our powder dry so we're able to take advantage of really unique and lucrative opportunities ahead of us. And there are many of them. I really think the next step is making sure we get that partner that really takes advantage of that opportunity to scale the brand into a very valuable platform.
It's funny you should say that. In some of the other sponsors, they brought in WeatherTech of all people to be on Van Gisbergen's car.
Yeah,
when he runs. I'm sure Embrace Health that was on the car at Chicago, they'll be back on a race or two, I'm sure.
undoubtedly.
But through Justin Marks' let's just say, as you coined it before we went on holiday break, his Twix account, shared a photo of him and Van Gisbergen signing 2 contracts. One specific, substantially large brand, let's word it that way, that was tagged in said photo was none other than Red Bull. There's a lot of speculation and anticipation that Red Bull is probably about to be back on a Cup car.
Not necessarily as an owner, but certainly as a sponsor.
As a sponsor, because they sponsor Van Gisbergen in Australia and New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
So, circling back around to something I've said before on these very airways of this very show, and it's continuing to show itself as the disclaimer is at the start in the most positive way possible. Justin Marks is turning into the most dangerous car owner and team owner in motorsports.
And we're saying that as a compliment. We're not saying that it's a bad thing.
It's a pure compliment.
Big compliment. Yep. Watch him. Watch them. They're going to be big.
He's getting sneaky dangerous, and they're going to get larger and larger and larger and larger.
Oh, yeah. Beard Motorsports has been a part-time Cup Series operation the past few years. Those plans continue in 2024. They've fielded a number 62 Chevrolet Camaro. Will do so again this coming year. 4 planned Cup Series events this coming seasons. This race, Daytona 500, Geico 500 at Talladega, Coke Zero Sugar 400 back at Daytona, and then back at Talladega for the Yellowwood 500. At this time, the only race that has a driver confirmed is Anthony Alfredo, who will be in the 62 for the first 2 races they'll attempt to qualify for, Daytona and Talladega in the spring. It wouldn't surprise me if he stays with that 62 car just because it's only 2 more races. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
This one left me a little bit of a head scratcher because you had fairly decent runs with Austin Hill last year.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go to Anthony Alfredo?
Something happened somewhere.
Something.
Speaking of running the Daytona 500, Cowlick Racing, fresh off demoting A.J. Allmendinger back to full-time Xfinity Series competition, have announced that they will put him in a Cup Series car for the Great American Race, as Ken Squire termed it. He'll be in the number 16 Chevrolet Camaro, marking Allmendinger's 11th try in the biggest Cup Series race of the year. This is, for me, probably the biggest head-scratcher of all. I still don't get why he's not still in that Cup car. I just don't get it.
I don't know, because the one that was said to be speculated to take that car over is not taking that car over, so they effectively turning it into an all-star car?
Makes no sense.
No sense whatsoever.
You want an all-star car? Put an all-star car in the Xfinity Series. We have a lot of all-star cars in the Xfinity and the Truck Series. You don't put an all-star car in the Cup Series. You just don't do it.
And you know you can successfully run a third car, and Allmendinger will put it in the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, mind-boggling. We haven't heard too much about the Cup Series team that champion boxer Floyd Mayweather began a few years ago. It's the Money Team. The team, which uses the number 50, ran 4 races in 2022, dropped down to only 2 races last year. They got into the Daytona 500, qualified at COTA, but really nothing since, and they've been quiet ever since, too. They state they do plan to race in 2024. They're saying they're looking forward to anywhere from 5 to 8 races this coming year. Now, the team is, yes, owned by Floyd Mayweather, but it's managed by the husband and wife pairing of Becky and Willie Auchmoody. They've set a high goal as far as looking to the future. They want to get a hold of a charter and prepare to go racing full-time as soon as 2025. Who will drive for them in 2024 isn't even known yet, much less 2025. Probably they'll continue to use Chevrolet Camaros with ECR engines, which is what they've been using, but even that's not been confirmed yet. One would think you'd like to get this stuff confirmed before you go out and you get ready to spend upwards of $40 million for a charter, which is what we just learned Spire bought that third charter for that Trackhouse Racing is used to put Zane Smith in the Cup Series.
And the sad part about this is there's really no charters that are available to buy.
Yeah, where are you going to get that charter?
The only one I could think of would be one of the Ware charters.
And knowing Ware, he's not going to be willing to give it up because
Especially
he's starting to make those little connections there that he's been needing to make for a few years to try and get that team out of the cellar.
Yeah, especially when they're partnering up with RFK this year.
Uh-huh.
They're de facto the third and fourth RFK cars.
Be real interesting to see where, if anywhere, they can find a charter.
Yeah.
List of the top-selling NASCAR diecast collectibles for 2023 has been released. Strangely enough, it ain't Chase Elliott, and it ain't Kyle Larson. Heck, it ain't even 2023 champion Ryan Blaney at the top of the chart.
I'm not surprised by this one.
But when you stop and you think about it, and we'll show you the picture of it here in a moment, the top-selling diecast for 2023 does make a lot of sense. It's that number 29 throwback for the 2014 Cup Series champion Kevin Harvick that he drove in the All-Star Races return to North Wilkesboro. That's a sharp-looking car right there. Because you want to talk about nailing a look as best as you can from that old 29 car to a 2023 Gen 7 Cup Series racer. That's about as close as you're going to get. They really did a nice job of it.
Yep, they did.
The second one actually does kind of make sense once you dig into it. Second on the list, Eric Jones in a 43 car. But you say, wait a minute, Eric Jones? He didn't do anything except have that Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction paint scheme. That was popular enough to put it number 2 on the list. Mm-hmm. Number 3, Kyle Busch's Lucas Oil Auto Club winning car. Remember Auto Club Speedway? Sorry. Ryan Blaney's Dutch Boy Champion Menards look. That came in 4th. 5th bestseller, throwback to Dale Earnhardt 1998 Daytona 500 win. Now, I've played around a little bit in the business of selling diecast collectibles, and I'm here to tell you, they will continue as long as people buy them, and it's the 5th bestseller of 2023, by the way. Mm-hmm. They'll continue to find cars for Dale Earnhardt and put them out for people to buy.
That Legends series that they're starting to put out is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. Number 6, NASCAR's 75th anniversary Camaro, just a basic NASCAR along the side, the 75th anniversary diamond logo on the hood, pretty good looking car. Shane Van Gisbergen's or SVG's race-winning look from the Chicago Street Course then comes in, and rounding out the top 10, Chase Elliott's number 9 Napa look, Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s number 3 Bass Pro Shops late model, not even one he ran in NASCAR. And finally, the Kevin Harvick Budweiser throwback that he drove on the 4-car late in the 2023 season. And we talked about that car, too, when they showed that off.
Homestead car.
And talk about getting it almost dead on from the way that it looked when that paint scheme originally showed up. They hit it big time. Thanks to NASCAR.com for the look at the 29 throwback on the track that you see right there on CRN Live on YouTube. I didn't buy that car. I'd have to go and look for it.
They're there.
I know.
They are there.
But that would mean breaking my rule.
Yeah, your rule would be broke for sure.
I mean, the only other driver that I've bought other than Tony Stewart or Darrell Waltrip has been Bobby Labonte, but it was because those Bobby Labonte cars were paired up with what Tony Stewart was driving on the paint scheme.
I spotted one the other day that I don't know if you have or not that I seen for sale that was a Tony Stewart car.
And you didn't get it for me.
By the time I went, it went sold.
Gotcha. Which one was it?
It was the Busch car with the number 15 on it.
Goes back to, it goes way back. I do have one.
Black and white and red.
I might have that one. Dude, I've got more than 100 of them. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up this segment and talk about the loss of an icon. Fans woke up on New Year's Eve to learn of the passing of one Cale Yarborough. Born William Caleb Yarborough near Timminsville, South Carolina at the end of the Great Depression. He was the oldest of 3 sons, lost their father in a plane crash when Cale was only 10. He was an athlete from the get-go, started for Timminsville High School in football, even played semi-pro in Columbia, South Carolina for 4 years. He was also a Golden Gloves boxer. Yarborough said he attended the second ever Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway, got in without a ticket. Remember when you could do that? He liked it so much, he decided to try his hand at racing as well, so he went out to make his first attempt to qualify for a race as a teenager. He lied about how old he was. NASCAR found out, and they disqualified him. what you get for lying. But in 1957, he got another chance at it. He got a ride with Bob Weatherly to drive his number 30 Pontiac. Remember Pontiac, kids? Back in that year's Southern 500. Started 44th, finished 42nd after suffering mechanical problems. Stuck with Weatherly in 1959, claimed 27th in one of his cars. Again in 1960, where he got 14th at the Southern States Fairgrounds race. Picture of Yarborough on CRN Lives, courtesy of Darlington Raceway. He continued over the next few years running select races, never more really than 8 in a season, until 1963 when he connected with Herman Beam to drive his number 19 Ford. He actually began 1964 with him, but left midway through the year to drive for a team you might have heard of, Holman Moody. Sorry, Herman, but if I had a chance to go from you to Holman Moody, I'd do it too. Mm-hmm. He finished 19th in the final points that year. He'd go on to drive for Banjo Matthews before switching to Wood Brothers in 1966, 1967. He also raced the Indy 500 both of those years, claimed the 1967 Daytona 500 by besting Leroy Yarborough, by the way, no relation, in a battle to that finish line. He'd continue on with Wood Brothers until the 1971 season when Ford pulled all factory support from NASCAR. He switched to Plymouths, fielded by Ray Fox in a continued, mostly part-time NASCAR role that allowed him to run the Indy 500 most seasons. But the last time he ran the Indy 500, 1973. He finished 10th. Some other select USAC races as well. But it was 1973 when he turned his attention to NASCAR full-time. He won 4 races that 73 season. 10 the next for Richard Howard in the number 11 car. He would remain in the number 11. You say, Richard Howard, who the heck is that? Wasn't that Junior Johnson's car? Yep. Richard Howard sold the team to Junior Johnson midway through 1974, and after some sponsor problems early in 75, the pairing of Johnson and Yarborough paid off. Won 9 races 1976, including 4 in a row, claimed his first ever Cup Series title. He backed it up with 2 more Cup Series titles in consecutive order, 77 and 78. That 77 title also notable because he became, I should say, the first Cup Series champion to not record a DNF. And to put some history on that, only one other Cup Series champion in NASCAR history has been able to claim the Cup Series champion without recording a DNF. Bobby Labonte did it in 2000. Yep. He switched from Chevrolet to Oldsmobile for 1978. It didn't slow him down. He won his 3rd title in a row that year, and in 1979 got to battling for another Daytona 500 win when he and Donnie Allison got into that famous last lap crash and the fight with the Allison brothers after the fact. In 1980, he finished 2nd in the championship to a young Dale Earnhardt before leaving Junior Johnson and recommending the ride to a kid by the name of Darrell Waltrip. What did Darrell do in that car? Oh, he only went out and won 3 championships in 4 years.
Quite a bit.
He moved over to MC Anderson, returning to a part-time role. For 1983, he joined the Rainier Lundy team, sponsorship coming from Hardee's, or Carl's Jr. if you're west of the Mississippi River. He ran 16 races, got his 3rd Daytona 500 win. He'd also claim a Daytona 500 win in 1984 and that year's IROC title. His last win would come at Talladega in 1985, his final pole position 1986 in the Firecracker 400. He started his own team in 1987 when he bought Jack Beebe's Race Hill farm team, bringing the Hardy sponsorship along with him. He'd run that team through 1988, drove for the team through 1988, retired as a driver, splitting time with the young Dale Jarrett behind the wheel. Jarrett took the car full-time in 1989, but after 89, Jarrett left, and Yarborough put a kid by the name of Dick Trickle in the car for 1990 and renumbered the car to number 66 because they had a sponsorship from oil company Phillips 66. In 1991, he would use several drivers. He had Dick Trickle there along with Lake Speed, Randy LaJoy, Chad Little, and others. But by 1993, things started to kind of go downhill. He's now got Bojangles as a sponsor. Team used the number 98. They had driver Derek Quope, but they switched to Jeremy Mayfield midway through 1994. Never really saw as much success as an owner, using a revolving door of drivers. So he sold the team in 2000, became McPherson Motorsports, which soon died off. Over his career, Cale Yarborough raced 560 races over 31 years with 83 wins. Think about that. 83 wins and 560 races. It's quite the record. 69 pole positions, 3 titles, 4 Daytona 500 wins, 5 Southern 500 wins, 2 Winston 500 wins, and holds the modern era record for poles in a season with 14, which he did in 1980. He got inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in 1993, the NMPA Hall, and the Motorsports Halls of Fame in 1994, and in 2012 was inducted into the Hall of Fame class for NASCAR. He's also one of NASCAR's 50 greatest drivers named in 1998, and of course, one of the 75 greatest from this past year. The stretch of South Carolina Highway 403 that runs through Timmonsville that is named Cale Yarborough Highway. He was also inducted into the South Carolina Hall of Fame in 2013. He and his wife, Betty Jo Thigpen, married in 1961, had 3 daughters. He also owned Cale Yarborough Honda for a quarter century. The dealership still carries his name, but health problems put him in hospice care in Florence, South Carolina late in 2023. He passed away there early on December the 31st. Cale Yarborough, 84 years old.
We will be right.
Attention to the Xfinity Series, where big changes in store over at Junior Motorsports for 2024. Obviously, they lost Josh Berry to Stewart Haas Racing in the Cup Series. We noted that last year, and we talked about it earlier on in this show. So they got a driver lineup that we detailed last year as well. Sam Mayer's got the 1 car, Justin Allgaier's in the 7, Sammy Smith's in the 8, the 9 will be Brandon Jones. Now we know the crew chiefs for those drivers as well. Marty Lindley returns to call the shots on the 1 car. Well, you don't want to mess with success. Championship contender Justin Allgaier will keep Jim Pullman as his crew chief. Shot callers on the 8 for Sammy Smith. That'll be Adam Wall. He's been with Junior Motorsports on and off since 2016. First as an engineer on Elliott Sadler's car, moved over with crew chief Kevin Meendering up to Hendrick Motorsports in 2018, working first on the 48 and then on the 5 car. And then on the 9 car, I have to admit, I kind of screwed that up because I said it was Adam Wall again, and it's not. So anyway, yeah, they've got 4 different ones. But here's the thing. Junior Motorsports, Hendrick Motorsports, we know this too, that these two are well connected with each other. It's a pipeline that just basically goes between the 2 campuses.
Pretty much. And
I say campuses loosely because Junior Motorsports isn't all that far away from where Hendrick is.
It's about, I think it's about 15 miles.
Yeah. I mean, but those two have a pipeline, which will make things all the more interesting if the rumors that we keep hearing in the offing about how Junior Motorsports might get into the Cup Series actually comes to fruition.
Yeah.
Again, it's a rumor, so therefore we're not going to go into it here. And what will come as a surprise to absolutely nobody here on the show is Shane Van Gisbergen has been confirmed to be a driver in the ARCA Menard Series race at Daytona before getting into the Xfinity Series car as a driver. There has been an update on who he's driving for. We're going to get back to that shortly. Mm-hmm. RSS Racing continues to fill out their 2024 driver lineup. They've signed Blaine Perkins to run for them full-time. Perkins racing 30 of 33 races just last year, split between SS Greenlight Racing and Our Motorsports. RSS Racing stated Perkins are going to drive their number 29, but noted sponsors will be announced at a later date. Generally, that means probably a contract situation that said that they couldn't talk about it until the new year or a specific date that was in the future. Mm-hmm. Now, this is going to be a 3rd car for that team because they previously announced that the brother combination of Ryan and Kyle Sieg will both be back with the team in 2024 as well, both of them in full-time roles. Kyle's set to drive the team's number 28. Ryan Sieg will be back in the familiar number 39, all of them Chevrolet Camaros. So RSS Racing is starting to step up here, too. It'll be interesting to see their progress as they move along. Mm-hmm. AM Racing is something we're going to spend a couple of moments here on. AM Racing has found a crew chief that they hope is going to mentor a young Haley Deegan in her first year of full-time Xfinity Series competition. They've chosen Joe Williams Jr. for the role. Williams joining AM Racing before 2023. He was on the war wagon for Brett Moffitt, who went on to claim top 5 and 9 top 10 finishes. Williams is veteran crew chief in Xfinity. He's got a win with Cole Custer behind the wheel at SS Greenlight Racing in 2022. That was at Auto Club Speedway. 8 top 5 and 30 top 10 finishes to his record overall as a crew chief. Williams and Deegan have already worked together in her Xfinity Series debut in early October 2022 when she drove the 07 for SS Greenlight Racing, where she qualified 20th and finished 13th. I hesitate to say this because I got to admit, I kind of root for Haley Deegan, but this is a girl, young woman, who spent, was it 3 years in the Truck Series? Mm-hmm. And what did she do? Other than claim 3 straight series most popular driver awards. What did she do that justifies her getting this ride?
That would be nothing, but this is unfortunately a prime top tier, top level example of a manufacturer pushing a prospect through.
Yeah.
Prime example.
And I don't know, maybe the car works better to her particular driving style than a truck does, because we have seen that.
I say this from experience. There are times that when driving a high horsepower vehicle versus a lower horsepower vehicle can expose your talents.
Yeah.
Whether they're the positive side or the bad side.
Okay.
Because you put me in a lower horsepower car, I could not hit my rear end in a 40-acre field. But you leave me in high horsepower, I'm going to give you a run.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to high horsepower.
Yeah.
I've thought about this ever since they've announced her going up. I've got this sneaky, crazy feeling that this may be one of those situations of where you see, and I know it's a huge comparison, but it's a similar path.
Okay.
The path of what Jimmy Johnson done going from Busch to Cup. What's the difference between Busch and Cup? Horsepower.
Sure.
She's going from trucks to Xfinity. What's the difference between trucks and Xfinity? About 250 horsepower. That's a difference.
Sure. Then there's the rumor that just keeps popping up because somebody threw it up on social media, Twix, which, by the way, that's a term that I heard before the new year, and I was able to put it on the last show of 2023. For those of you that don't know, Twix is what I am now going to call what used to be Twitter and is now X. I'm just going to call it Twix.
Elon's pet.
Yeah. One person puts this out there, and nobody else has actually stated it, but we keep hearing links between AM Racing and Matt DiBenedetto. Now, for Matt DiBenedetto, I hope that he does find a full-time ride, because Matt DiBenedetto deserves a full-time ride. Matt DiBenedetto is one of the best underrated racers out there currently, in my mind.
Sure.
And truth be told, Matt DiBenedetto would be that shoulder and that ear that Haley Deegan could use as the young driver to the veteran driver.
Could.
But again, one person has claimed the rumor, and nobody else is backing it up.
Here's the kicker to that I'll throw in on there. The person that has had said rumor, that has had it on their Twix account, everything that they've said that they've heard of where said driver is going to said location, they're batting 1,000.
Okay. But again,
They're
the
batting
only
1,000.
one, they're the only one reporting it. We'll find out whether it comes true or not.
And we're going to see.
Calic Racing has set their Xfinity Series crew chief lineup. They've reunited AJ Allmendinger with Alex Yance on the Xfinity 16 car. They worked together back in 2019 for races at Road America and Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Newcomer Josh Williams on the 11 car. That's not the spotter. This is the actual driver. He's going to get former Junior Motorsports chief engineer Kevin Walter, who leaves the 8 car for his first crew chief role. For the other newcomer, Shane Van Gisbergen, he's going to get veteran Calic crew chief Bruce Schlicker, who has been with the operation now 4 years as a crew chief. There was where that picture was.
Got it.
Sorry. Thanks to Calic Racing for the look at the crew chiefs on CRN Live on YouTube. Young's Motorsports, probably best known as a Craftsman Truck Series operation, but they announced this week they're set to expand. They're going to add an Xfinity Series arm, and they're going to field a number 42 Chevrolet Camaro. They've announced Leland Honeyman Jr. will be the pilot of that full-time ride. Drove a part-time schedule for Alpha Prime Racing last year, got into 8 races, but never finished inside the top 20. So they're going to choose a kid who got 8 races, never finished inside the top 20 for a brand new Xfinity operation?
Yeah. What?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Prior to that, Honeyman was in the Arca Menard Series in 2022, finished 3rd in the final points there. Young's Motorsports, founded in 2009. They've been full-time in the truck series for just about all that time. Last year had 3 full-time trucks with 17 drivers used to fill out the slate. The only driver they had full-time was Spencer Boyd.
I still cannot understand, and there are very, very few that are an exception to the path here.
Okay.
I cannot understand this path of people going from ARCA and ARCA East straight to Xfinity.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, and I will also say this when it comes to Young's Motorsports. And hey, as a business model, maybe you're expanding too fast, maybe you're not. I don't know. But just talking about them last year, to field 3 full-time trucks is one thing. To use 17 different drivers because you only have one of them full-time, that's another.
Yeah.
To me, shouldn't you make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row on your 3 Craftsman Truck Series rides before you start expanding out into the Xfinity Series?
1, for sure. 2, when one of your part-time your part-time driver filled trucks, it's a full-time team, but using as an array of drivers.
Mm-hmm.
When one of those trucks is faster than your full-time driver's truck, That is a problem.
A big one.
When said full-time driver was bumped down so far that he started missing shows.
Ouch.
That's a problem.
Yeah. You don't have all your ducks in a row in the truck series.
Yeah.
Now you're going to expand out and split your attention to a fourth car in an entirely different series.
And where did you get the cars from?
Also a good question. Then there's DGM Motorsports. They've announced they've signed veteran NASCAR driver Josh Bilicki to run several races this coming year, piloting the 92 Chevrolet Camaro. First will be, of course, at Daytona, season opener, February 17th. Sponsor and remaining races will be announced at a later date, the team said. Josh Bilicki brings a veteran presence, obviously, to DGM Motorsports. What else might he bring?
Money.
Okay. I figured, but I'll double check.
Money.
Ty Dillon's got himself a new ride for 2024.
This one's a scratcher right here.
Ty Dillon's dropping from the Cup Series all the way down to the Craftsman Truck Series. He's going to drive for Rackley War Racing for their number 25, I should say, Chevy Silverado. Now, Dillon raced full-time in the Cup Series last year at Spire Motorsports in the number 77 and did, well, nothing. Last time he was full-time in the Truck Series was 2013, claiming 2 wins, driving for his grandfather's team, Richard Childress Racing. Rackley Roofing will return as the primary sponsor for a deal for 16 races. The team promises additional sponsor announcements will be coming soon. And, of course, Dillon takes over the truck from the aforementioned Matt DiBenedetto, who left the team with 3 races remaining in 2023.
Rackley, I saw, was going to be on the truck for 16 of the 22.
Okay. That matches pretty much what I was saying. We'll find out who the other 6 are.
Mm-hmm.
For Dillon, 58 Truck Series starts to his credit, 3 wins, 20 top 5, 36 top 10 results. But again, most recent start came in 2021. Now, Rackley War made the playoffs, first time in 2023, their 3rd season in the series, 13 top 5s, 9th in the final owner's points. But again, most of that was because of Matt DiBenedetto, who they shoved out the door with 3 races left to go in the year. Now they bring in Ty Dillon. Now, we've said this before. Some drivers get in over their head once they move out of a particular area. They're just more comfortable at a certain level. And there's nothing wrong with that. Matt Crafton has made himself a nice, fancy, handsome career full-time in the Truck Series. Tried his hand at Xfinity, tried his hand at Cup, just didn't fit, returned to trucks. He's comfortable there. Okay, we can talk all day about Justin Allgaier in the Xfinity Series. He seems very comfortable there, and he's making a nice career out of it. Ty Dillon was in over his head in the Cup Series.
Very.
Not to mention the fact that he never really got the chance that his brother Austin did. Austin went straight to the number 3 car in Richard Childress Racing. And I don't care whether the car was built and or prepared by Richard Childress Racing. Germain Racing was never going to be Richard Childress Racing. And Spire Motorsports, while they continue to expand out, we could tell Ty Dillon was in over his head because whatever his teammate Corey LaJoie was able to do, Ty Dillon couldn't.
Not even close. Not even close.
So maybe this is going to be Ty Dillon's ability to set himself up for whatever the rest of his career is going to show.
Hopefully.
He's got to hope so.
Hopefully.
Spire Motorsports, as we noted last year, undergoing that wild expansion means a full-time Craftsman Truck Series operation. They, of course, bought the former Kyle Busch Motorsports operation practically lock, stock, and barrel. On Wednesday of this week, the team announced they've signed Chase Purdy to drive their number 77 Chevy Silverado entry this coming season full-time, and they are pairing him with Jason Trincheri as his crew chief. Okay. For all intents and purposes, this is a re-signing. Purdy drove for KBM last year in their Ford truck, finished 11th in the final standings, claimed 2 poles with 3 top 5 and 11 top 10 finishes. Purdy said of signing with Spire, quote, seeing what they've done the last few years and the drivers they've had come through, being in that system makes me excited for the future. I'm more determined than ever. I can't wait to get to work. Spire Motorsports Truck Series, what are you thinking?
I've seen they're going to have 3 full-time teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they've got some technical alliances that are yet to be announced coming.
Sure. I don't think anybody's surprised by that.
There's nobody gonna be surprised because whoever KBM was having a technical alliance with, they're probably Spire's gonna pick them right back up. Ding.
If that gives you an idea.
About all you can say is time's going to tell.
Okay. See if they can come anywhere close to what the former KBM was able to do.
I think it's going to be on par, honestly.
Okay. All right. We'll find out. Got some other NASCAR news coming up here. Got a little bit of Superstar Racing Experience news and some NHRA and IndyCar, and one segment to do it. Be a race to the finish line. We'll see how it goes as we take our final break of the weekend right here on CRN.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back.
We'd love to be there. Get us a PA gig. Just say it that way. If you're on CRN Live on YouTube, you know what we were talking about. Remember when we used to call the beginning of the year at Daytona Speed Weeks?
Yeah, which I dearly miss.
Now it's Speed Week. I mean, think about it.
Or Speed Days.
Yeah. We're going to begin the 2024 season, technically, with a non-points race in Los Angeles. And that's less than a month from now, technically. And then the week off, where they trudge all the way back across the country to go to Daytona while the NFL puts on that little game that they call the Super Bowl. You might have heard of it.
Yeah, kind of.
And then we'll turn things over to NASCAR. Tuesday will be the random draws for the Xfinity and the Cup Series qualifying. Wednesday will be Media Day, followed by Cup Series qualifying. That'll take place at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:15 p.m. Central Time that evening. Okay. Thursday of Daytona 500 week, we'll see on-track action in the form of ARCA Menard Series practice, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, followed quickly at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central by Craftsman Truck Series practice. And then you'll get in the qualifying races for the Cup Series. The duels, race 1, begins 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, and at about, give or take, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, 7:45 p.m. Central Time, the second race, qualifying race, will get the green flag. That brings us to Friday. 1:30 p.m. Eastern, ARCA qualifying takes to the track. Truck Series quals at 3 p.m. Eastern. Xfinity Series practice, 4:35 p.m. Eastern, 5:35 p.m. Eastern. Cup Series practice, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. The first race of the Craftsman Truck Series 2024 season will run. Now, you were talking about one particular driver with a name that we've talked about quite a bit already this show, Andretti.
Mm-hmm.
Has not run a super speedway.
He has not.
But it looks like he might actually do it this time. But he's got to go through some processes.
Yep. He is, I seen he has entered into the test at Daytona, ARCA Open test at Daytona next week.
Marco Andretti.
Driving the 17 car for Bruce Cook.
Okay. And practice should allow him to drive a Truck Series race.
Should.
Okay. So Marco Andretti looks like he's going to continue his kind of dabbling around in NASCAR.
Looks like.
Saturday, we'll begin with the Cup Series final practice, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, followed by Xfinity Series qualifications, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. ARCA Menard Series will hold their season opener, taken to the track 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central Time, followed by the Xfinity Series season opener. They'll get the green flag for the 2024 season, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central Time, and that leaves Sunday. Cup Series beginning their 2024 season with the Daytona 500, or as the late Ken Squire so called it, the Great American Race, set to go green just after 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Central Time. It'll be a busy few days at Daytona. And for our friends over at Talladega Superspeedway, Matt and I are available. Just saying. For the record, and not a surprise to either of us here at CRN, Shane Van Gisbergen has added the ARCA Menard Series race to his 2024 race schedule. Again, this is what he needs to be able to go superspeedway racing in NASCAR. SVG is going to drive a Chevrolet prepared by the Pinnacle Racing Group. Car number and sponsors will be announced soon. So Saturday, SVG set to be pretty busy because he's supposed to drive the ARCA Menard Series car and then go to the Xfinity Series race later that day.
28 will be the car number.
Is that confirmed?
That's the car number of that car, yes.
Okay.
28.
So they just announced that.
Yeah, the 28 car, and there's no telling which spot. I'm sure it'll be a pretty sizable sponsor on the side of that car.
It wouldn't shock me if Red Bull comes in and does something.
I wouldn't be shocked either. But yeah, that specific team that's run by Shane Huffman is 28.
Okay. Apparently, SVG is beginning something of a trend, leading drivers from the Australian Supercar Series up to NASCAR. Now, we saw Brody Kostecki run for Richard Childress Racing at the Indy Road Course last year, and RCR is confirming they have a deal with him to drive select races in a combined effort with his Australian Supercars teams, Erebus Motorsports, this coming year. The races have not been detailed, so right now they've just got to work out the finals of his deal down under, and then what he can come over and do here in the United States of America. So still to be determined. Next up, apparently, is a kid by the name of Cam Waters. Waters drives a Ford Mustang for Tickford Racing down under. Waters is already said to have signed a deal that has not been officially announced with a leading Ford NASCAR operation, said to be Roush Fenway Keselowski, to run at least 3 races this coming season stateside. The reports claim the deal is contingent on a 1-year renewal with Tickford Racing, but the reports also state that Waters wants to follow SVG and become a full-time NASCAR driver maybe as soon as 2025. All of this is because of his sponsor down under. Waters is sponsored by Monster Energy Drink. Where have we seen that before? They helped introduce him to some NASCAR teams and reportedly very highly interested in helping him switch from Aussie Supercars to NASCAR, which would give them a 3rd driver. Because remember, they've got Ty Gibbs in the Cup Series, and they've got, who's that kid from SHR? Oh, yeah, that's right. The kid that actually claimed his first win last year.
Gibbs. Herbst, Reddick, Deegan.
That's right, too. I forgot about Haley Deegan.
How
many cars can Monster Energy Drink possibly sponsor? By the way, we're open for sponsorship here on CRN, Monster Energy Drink. Just saying. Veteran racing reporter announcer Claire B. Lang surprised everybody when she announced on Wednesday of this week that after 22 years, she is out at SiriusXM Satellite Radio, where she's been part of their NASCAR channel racing coverage. To explain that she left while the channel goes through a, quote, change in direction for the channel, unquote, which neither she nor anybody at SiriusXM Satellite Radio have detailed.
Huh?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Weird. She'll land somewhere. I can guarantee it. Her name's too big not to.
Yeah, she will.
Atlanta Motor Speedway is getting a facelift, which we're going to give you a peek at. SMI officials have announced that there's going to be new gate houses to welcome fans into the grandstand area, 3 of them specifically, where tickets will be sold and checked before the fans go in and get to their seats. They'll cover the Johnson, Earnhardt, and Champions grandstands. The new gate houses are the track making the entry process, they say, quicker and easier for ticket holders to pass through to get to their seats faster. Track officials state that they will be up and operational for the first race of 2024. We thank Atlanta Motor Speedway for the look on CRN Live on YouTube.
This is something that they desperately needed.
Yeah, because we've watched it. We've seen it.
We've lived it.
We've been through it, and it's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
So anything you could use to streamline that process,
tight quarters,
is a good thing.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, as of when we talked 3 weeks ago last, we know 5 of the 6 races for the upcoming 4th year of the Superstar Racing Experience. The day after Christmas, the series revealed the first 5 races of the year. But we still got a question mark on date number 6. We'll have to know it by August the 15th, but we're waiting to find out. What we do know is this. First 4 races, as previously announced. July 11th, Stafford Speedway, Connecticut. This is the 3rd year in a row to go there and opening up the year again with them. July 18th, the previously promised Thunder Road at Barry, Vermont will happen July the 18th. This is the one that got flooded out, remember, in 2023. They promised they would go back there this year. They are. So race number 2. Race number 3, the race that Chi-Town Mark demands that we go to, Slinger Speedway in Slinger, Wisconsin, July the 25th. They need PA announcers. Matt and I are available.
We'll travel.
Sure. Berlin Raceway, Michigan, August the 1st. That'll be race number 4, and that'll wrap up what we believe will be the asphalt portion of the schedule. We say that because the last 2 races, if SRX history tells us anything, should be run on dirt. The 3 years that they've existed so far, 4 races on pavement, 2 races on dirt. August 8th has already been revealed to be Cedar Lake Raceway, Chi-Town Mark, in New Richmond, Wisconsin. If you don't know about it, it's a track opened up in 1957 by the father-son combination of Elmer and Bob Cook. They added new partners in 2001. It's a 3/8 mile high-banked clay oval, generally attracts somewhere around 120 entries each and every weekend.
Good racetrack. Very good racetrack.
So that puts 3 races really in the Midwest. So we got 2 in New England, Connecticut, Barry, Vermont. Then you go to Slinger, Wisconsin, Berlin, Michigan, Cedar Lake Raceway, New Richmond, Wisconsin. Guesses as to where they might go for race number 6?
I personally think they need to come south. But
that's a long trek, though, in a week's time for a smaller series. No disrespect to SRX, but they are. Let's face it, they're a smaller series. I mean, how far south do you think that they would be able to go in 1 week and make it work?
I'll say this and use in comparison. If there are Lucas Oil late model dirt series cars that will come from the Midwest on a rain out on a Friday, come all the way to Talladega to run a $50,000 dirt late model race on a Saturday, I think personally that SRX can go from Cedar Lake in Wisconsin on the 8th to somewhere in the south on the 15th. Personal opinion.
Talladega short track, anybody? We're just suggesting it. We're not saying it's going to happen.
I'm suggesting.
We're suggesting. We're not saying it will. We're suggesting.
I would not be totally surprised if they go back to Lucas Oil Speedway in Wheatland, Missouri. That was a really good show last year.
I could see that. Yeah. Or maybe to Indianapolis. I don't know. Could have happened to either one. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see for
Yep.
sure.
NHRA, after taking the 2023 season off from racing at what has been a fan favorite facilities, the now Mission Foods Drag Racing Series will return to Virginia Motorsports Park the weekend of June 21st through 23rd. Just before Christmas, tickets went on sale for the event. That'll be race number 9 of the 21 events on the slate. All 4 divisions will be racing that weekend. It'll also feature Friday qualifying, the Mission Too Fast, Too Tasty NHRA Challenge on Saturday, the finals on Sunday. The track's been a record breaker in its past. Top Fuel pilots setting track records in 2022 of a elapsed time of 3.654 seconds at a speed of 335.82 miles per hour. Funny car record set by Matt Hagan sets the same speed with an ET of 3.853 seconds. Pro Stock Car, Pro Stock Motorcycle track records also at Virginia Motorsports are amongst the fastest times and speeds ever run in NHRA official competition for those 2 divisions. So this is a fast facility. Glad that they're heading back. Skag Power Equipment, long been a sponsor in NHRA circles. Now they're upping their involvement as they start up the Skag Racing Team for 2024. 3-car operation with the organization taking over aspects of the Maynard Ashley and Maynard Wilkerson racing teams. Feature 2 Funny Car, 1 Top Fuel entry debuting at the season opening Gator Nationals. Right now, this is what we know. Driver for the Top Fuel entry will be Justin Ashley, Maynard Ashley Racing. Justin Ashley with crew chief combo of Mike Green and Tommy DeLago. Only one of the Funny Car entries has been filled right now. That'll be driver Dave Richards, second entry yet to be announced. The organization is also set to combine in working with the Elite Motorsports Powerhouse entry. They have long been a sponsor of their Pro Stock Car entries, so that looks like that will continue. As to whether or not that partnership eventually expands, time will tell.
Yep.
Unfortunately, as we approach Christmas Day, the NHRA lost 2 big names. The first of them, Don Schumacher, who began life in drag racing by really getting into match racing in the 1960s. He continued behind the wheel up and into in the 1970s, but began his own racing operation and started fielding multiple rides in what's now the Funny Car division as his driving career began to come to an end. Picture of Schumacher you're going to see on CRN Live is courtesy of NHRA.com. Midway through the 1970s, Schumacher stepped away from the NHRA to take over and build up the family Schumacher Electric Corporation, turned it into a global operation, which allowed him to go back to his first love of racing. But he didn't do that until 1998. That year, he entered a team centered around his son, Tony. They claimed the 1999 Funny Car title. It allowed Don Schumacher Racing to then show that they would be a force to deal with. More than 25 noted drivers have raced for Schumacher and his operation, claiming 19 titles, 367 event wins, or Wally trophies, as they call them. He was a major force in getting the factory stock showdown division up and running in NHRA competition. He also funded into the research for the enclosed canopy now being used by many drivers in Top Fuel. In recent years, he's been battling both back and neck cancer, which he was able to beat, but unfortunately in early 2023 noted he had developed lung cancer. Complications from that took his life. Wednesday, December the 20th, Don Schumacher was 79 years old. Now we know why he sold off that team, because we were all questioning why he was selling off so much a couple of years ago when all that was coming down. Now we know why.
But he held on to the manufacturing side of it.
But still, it all kind of becomes, because we were sitting there thinking, this is Don Schumacher. It's what he's done all of his life.
Yeah, which in a way, it was. I when I went to Indianapolis, I drove by the place. And I know you did too. His manufacturing shop that does all the manufacturing for the team still was larger than his teams put together.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
He's a good. I had an opportunity to meet him. A good man right there.
Good man. No doubt about it. And then there's Paula Murphy, whose own passing was noted December 21st. Murphy made history by becoming the first woman licensed to drive in the NHRA's Funny Car division. She cut her teeth in the Bonneville Salt Flats, setting a woman's land speed record of 161 miles per hour back in 1963 when she drove a car built by Andy Granatelli. Go on to sponsor Murphy's NHRA ride. She would go on to become known in NHRA circles as Miss STP. Picture of Murphy on CRN Live's courtesy of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Murphy is a local connection as well. 1971, she took to Talladega Superspeedway in the STP Dodge of Fred Lorenzen, turning a lap of 171.499 miles per hour. At that time, the quickest lap for a woman in a NASCAR stocker on a closed course. She would suffer a major crash at what we now call Sonoma Raceway in 1974 when her car wouldn't shut down after an NHRA run, ended up rolling over several times. She suffered a broken neck. Didn't stop her. She went back to racing in 1976, but that was really more of a farewell tour. She retired at the end of that year. Her accomplishments led to her induction in the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame in 1992, Motorsports Hall of Fame in 2017. Typically very low-key about it, said of it, quote, "I got really, really lucky. I don't think many people have gotten the opportunity to do some of the things that I did." Paula Murphy was surrounded by friends and family when she passed due to natural causes at the age of 95. We left a little bit on the table here, but time, unfortunately, catches up to us before all of our stuff gets done. So IndyCar and Formula E will lead off next week. We'll give them the respect that they deserve by leading the show off with them next weekend. So in the meantime, Ice Bowl weekend and Formula E set to come, and, well, Daytona's just around the corner.
It is.
Thanks for joining us this week. Hope you join us again next weekend right here as we detail it all again, right here on the Championship Racing Network. Until then, see you.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
WDNG 1450 AM
and W236 CQ 95.1.